Speak. I acknowledge the traditional owners, the Garryalla people, whose lands we are now meeting. I pay my respects to their elders past, present and emerging. I acknowledge the presence of in the audience of the Freeman of the City, Arnold Carter, and former suspended councillors and suspended mayor. Welcome to this, and members of the public, welcome. There's a number of things I just have to go through. The attendance is listed there. There is no attendance through telephone, there is no apologies, no leave of absence and no disclosures of interest. This is an important note in relation to the public time. This meeting is being recorded on audio tape and streamed live online as an additional recording of the meeting, and to assist the minute-taking process, which may be released upon to a third party upon request. If you do not give permission for recording your participation, please indicate this at the meeting. The public is reminded that in accordance with section 6.16 of the Town of Port Hedland Local Law on Standing Order, nobody shall use a visual or vocal electronic device or instrument to record the proceedings of any meeting unless the person has been given permission by the chairperson to do so. Members of the public are also reminded that in accordance with section 6.17 in brackets 4 of the Town of Port Hedland Local Laws Standing Orders, mobile phones must be switched off and not used during the meeting. I advise members that I have given permission for the ABC to record off our live stream. In accordance with section 6.7 subsection 3 of the Town of Port Hedland Local Laws on Standing Orders, members of the public are required to complete a question form and place the completed form in the tray provided. I remind members of the public that questions and statements must not contain offensive language or impugn the motives of council or staff. I've decided in relation to question time and statement time that they be combined so that people ask questions or statements can give them as they come up to the podium. Do we have any questions or statements? If you can give your name when you go, please.
My name is Lauren Shannon. I live at 49 Moore Street, Port Hedland. Just checking, seeing as the times combined, am I allowed to ask questions and then give a statement, or? If
during your statement you have questions, I'm happy to answer.
Well, I had two questions and then a statement.
Okay.
So the first question was, can the CEO and Commissioner please explain why this matter has been called into a special council meeting with less than a week's notice when the documents and letters from the insurers and lawyers that you are using to back the recommendations are dated back to June and July?
There's absolutely, what we have done is separate this meeting from the September OCM, just to give it its significance. There's been more than enough time for everyone to be notified, and we've put it out there in its fullness. So we don't feel that there has been a
lot of people do really feel like there was a shortage of time.
Well, from the turnout this evening, it's clearly that there wasn't.
Or
that there was.
Yeah. Next question. Do the people of Port Hedland have the right to appeal to the Department of Local Government if we believe that the decisions made are not in the best interest of the town? And if so, what's the process?
Yes, absolutely. You can apply to the Minister of Local Government to have this decision overturned. I guess you need to recognise that this item was brought back to Council because of the decision made previously and the concerns around that decision. So,
You'll get your turn to ask questions. Yep. Excuse me.
Just hang on a minute, Chris.
Yep.
Okay. And then I also have my statement. So I'd like to start by saying how disappointed I am that this matter is up for discussion again, especially now that the end decision can be made by one man rather than a table of councillors elected by the people of Port Hedland. As I'm sure that the Commissioner and CEO is aware, the proposed closure of the retirement village and discussions around the subject over the last year has caused a lot of undue stress for the residents of the village, and yet again the CEO has shown no compassion for these people, which has been made obvious by the knee-jerk announcement of a special council meeting which will decide the fate of their homes, and only giving days notice of this meeting via a letterbox drop. I'd also like to point out that the minimal notice given for the information session you have offered the residents is unacceptable, and you obviously have not considered the time it may take for them to arrange a support person to attend alongside them. And this is just the start of my concerns. It's beginning to become quite obvious that the Commissioner has a game plan for his time in Port Hedland and is taking directives from the state government. While making token offers of sporting complexes and parks, he is using these as smoke and mirrors to hide the things that are getting taken away from our town. The proposal of demolishing the retirement village and turning the land into a community park is absolutely ridiculous, seeing as there is already a park right across the road that the town of Port Hedland cannot even maintain. And I have many concerns about the token offer of designated land for seniors accommodation included in the McGregor Street Precinct Master Plan. Who's going to foot the bill for this accommodation? While you may be offering it, our suspended mayor has previously made it quite clear that he believes that the town of Port Hedland is not in the business of aged care. So who is going to guarantee that Port Hedland will still have a retirement village in the coming years? Karratha has one, I believe even Marble Bar has one. How are we supposed to grow our town when there is no or limited facilities for the elderly? These things need to be taken into consideration. Commissioner, you had previously stated that your first task here in Hedland was to speak with directors and senior staff, and as a matter of urgency, we need to start putting the ship of the state back on track. This leads me to believe that your decisions are based on what is good for the state and the state government, not necessarily the actual town of Port Hedland. We all have concerns that a lot of decisions seem to be getting made at the moment to revoke or change decisions made by the elected members of council on behalf of the people. To name a few, you are now supporting the improvement scheme, which will see the extension of the dust exclusion zone after council voted to not support it. You are now supporting the closure of the Port Hedland Cemetery, and now you are looking to support the closure of the retirement village. It seems quite convenient that all of these decisions have been made straight after suspending council, and will be making life nice and easy for the state government now that they have no pushback from elected council. When the elected members of council made these decisions, residents of the town attended the meetings, made their voices and opinions heard, and the council voted accordingly. You are now taking away our right to be involved in these decisions that affect our town. Where is the democracy? You are revoking decisions that were passed through council by way of absolute majority votes. When one man can go against the wishes of town residents and make huge decisions that impact many, it's clearly obvious that these decisions are only to serve an ulterior motive set out by the state government. Is this why there has been a lack of investigators brought in to look at the suspended council so you can clean up the area for the state government and BHP? I'll finish by saying that I believe that this decision is that important that it should be delayed until the elected members of council are back at the table and not have the fate decided by one person. And that's it.
Thanks. Is there anyone else? Yeah.
My name is Christine McDowell. I live at number 6 Nereus Court. I'm a long-time resident of Port Hedland. I also tonight would like to make a statement on behalf of a long-term resident who couldn't be here, so I'll do that first. It's for Mrs. Joan Foley of 3 Mosley Street. She's typed this and asked me to read it on her behalf. Her public statement is to the town of Port Hedland. She says, "Around my neck is a charm my sister-in-law gave me that says family is a circle of love. I come from a big and loving family that began in Port Hedland in 1946, when my mother, a nurse at the hospital and a resident of the now Dome, met my father, the first civilian officer in charge of the airport, with the airport road named after him. When I think of family, it doesn't stop at the edge of those that share my genes. In fact, my Hedland family and my love of them can't be put into a genetic box, or I wouldn't have my beloved daughter and family that flows out from her. In December, we met on this roundabout. I said to Peter, one of the retirees in the village, after he said in a distressed, broken accent that he didn't have anyone to represent him as he doesn't have family, she said, "I don't say that. Don't ever say that. You have family, your Port Hedland family. We love you and will stand for you. We hurt when you hurt. We are distressed when you are distressed, and we know and understand how precious your little homes by the sea are for you and how much it means us to have you, our family, living out their days there." Her final statement is, "Please stop hurting my family. Joan Foley, nee Waldron." I'd like to now give a public statement on my behalf. Let's have to get it in order. Right. So, along with my friend Lauren, I'm greatly distressed that the Commissioner, our Honourable Frederick Roebling, has asked the CEO David Pence to call this special meeting to revoke the Council's previous decision, saying you wanted to cease all actions with regard to the residents of Stephen Street site. We're talking about the Port Hedland Retirement Village, which was fundraised and lobbied for by the ratepayers and local residents, along with Sir Optimus Club in the late 60s, just after industry started actually in Port Hedland, to provide independent, affordable living in Port Hedland for residents who met the criteria of being over 65 years and on a pension. It is extremely distressing for the 10 residents to once again be told they don't have a village to live by the sea, next to each other. And furthermore, the second point for the special meeting was the relocation of the residents of the Stephen Street site, that is the Port Hedland Retirement Village, to a safe alternative accommodation. Hence, it doesn't matter what we, the ratepayers and residents of the town, want. We're being defined by you to have your right to say what we can do. I'm a long-term resident. I've been here for 31 years. I've been watching this town be defined by industry, so we no longer have the right to a fair and democratic process. We had a special meeting and it was decided to refurbish the village as per the community's support and the council's decision. That is not enough. Industry takes precedence over the town's services, recreations, housing and needs. We no longer have a voice, Honourable Frederick Roebling. You are taking our democracy away from us. Have you had any community consultation regarding this matter prior to this meeting? No, only selected groups of the community behind closed doors. Shame on you as an appointed commissioner by the government to be not following the appropriate rules of change. Community and members affected by the change need to be involved in consultation. The suspended Mayor, Camillo Blanco, and the CEO, David Pence, have never met with the residents even after many requests from the public forum at previous council meetings. Let me tell you why. David Pence, on becoming the CEO, was reported in the North West Telegraph on Wednesday, the 6th of September 2017. I shall read it. The title, Settle Dust Issue, Town Boss. The town of Port Hedland needs to start using the port in a productive way to drive growth and profits in the region and stop titillating the dust issue, according to the Chief Executive, David Pence. His comments were made during a Game Changer panel at the Pilbara Economic Development Conference in Perth last week. Mr Pence claimed the port and the town have been at odds for way too long, which needed to change. When the port supports 5,000 jobs in Hedland, 18.3 billion in economic contribution, 120 jobs in WA, 2.2 billion in taxes and royalties for every dollar spent in the port is $1.40 spent in the town, he said. If we start taking 1 billion tonnes through the port, that's another 2,700 jobs. That is where the focus is. The town, in a sense, needs to get out of the way, he said. We want to stop titillating around the dust issue, get the buffers in place, compensate where compensation is needed, and move on. I'm very shocked by that, Mr Pence. that you would say that without having ever been resident in this town. You'd just been appointed. Mr Pence has his own agenda. His tenure to this town is short, and as any corporate businessman, it is well known to be aggressive and ruthless. He's not got any empathy or concern for those that are a minority group.
Excuse me.
I'm just talking about...
Try not to impugn the motives of anyone. Okay.
Well, I'm just saying
I'm
he
sure
hasn't met with any of the residents, Mr Riebling.
I'm sure you can
That's
do
what I'm
it
indicating.
without resorting to language that impugns character, all right?
Well, I have had a meeting with him, so...
Okay.
Yeah, so I know. Sorry, it's a personal, okay? But I'm
Well,
saying
don't
he
make
hasn't
it
got any empathy for these people that we're representing today. They pioneered our town. Industry came in the 60s. This town started in the 1800s. This town has been here a lot longer than industry. Industry will help us survive, but it doesn't define the town. We pioneered through the boom and bust of industrial cycles. They'll continue because that's what happens in this town. We want our town and people protected by the Town of Port Hedland management. The council speak on behalf of the people, so you get rid of them and then do what the government wants. No consultation with the community, but lots of consultation with local industry in this town, the mining industry mainly, and the port. Cover the dust, keep the town. Let me live by the sea where the breeze is cool and the views are the best. Leave our seniors where they are, by the sea. You are bullying them with your behaviour. Your compensation is not what is appropriate or what is adequate by removing our town to South Hedland, which is what you suggested previously. Honourable Frederick Roebling, when you were appointed by the local government to represent the people, and it seems you are more inclined to be representing industry and not following our right as people to a democratic process. Some of the residents tonight are not mentally well enough to be here, and some are here and they're not well, as this has been and shaken them to the core. We need you to listen to the town, not the CEO. Thank you.
Do we have another? Lady?
Good evening. My name is Maura Glow and I reside at 88 Anderson Street, Port Hedland. Over the last few years, I've very rarely addressed this chamber, maybe twice, once to raise objections to the rise of commercial rates and once to berate councillors at their behaviour at a meeting and how it reflected badly on us ratepayers in the audience. However, tonight I really cannot stand by the sidelines and remain there without voicing my disquiet, even anger at the current actions of council in respect of tonight's agenda. I'm a long-term resident with much invested in this town, and I actually share the despair at the lack of quality leadership and progress that I hear articulated by the local community on a daily basis. It is very clear to us, the local community, that our best interests are not being represented at any level, especially at the level of local government. And tonight's example is, in my opinion, the consequences of the indifference that us locals have been shown for a long time. We are, unbelievably, one of the wealthiest local government areas in the state, with more funds invested in the name of ratepayers than any other community I am aware of. I also understand that we're a very generous community when it comes to rewarding our council employees, who are about the best paid in the state. In fact, correct me if I've got this wrong, but I think our CEO earns more than the Premier. And a couple of weeks ago, we were advertising for 2 directors at 200,000 each plus. So despite appearances to the contrary, we're a council with a bob or two to our name. Even if housing provision for the elderly is not the usual function of local government, I feel that there would be very few dissenting voices in this community if council were to depart from the usual role of providing physical infrastructure of the nuts and bolts variety and understand that this town used to stand for something once, that we value our elderly, and that we desperately require a reason to feel good ourselves at this point in time. And by providing quality housing in a quality location to anyone's benefit, and we invest some of the millions invested to our name, would go some way to restoring community pride in this town. In fact, there was a proviso put in place when council leased the airport that a committee of local residents be formed to provide direction for the future use of these funds for community benefit. Ratepayers who are listening tonight may be interested to know that this has not happened, but I am confident that had it had, housing for the elderly would be a priority with 100% support. What we have tonight in front of us is a recommendation by faceless bureaucrats that have no investment, emotional or otherwise, in this community, ticking off boxes without any acknowledgement of the effects of the recommendation on the current residents or any attempt to mitigate their distress at having their leases terminated. Congratulations are hardly in order for the supporting evidence supplied in defence of the officer's recommendation, i.e. the ratepayers report, which I'm sure cost a pretty dollar. Talk about telling you the obvious. I could have actually written that report for nothing. I know that probably my address tonight won't change the outcome, but I hope it might activate us ratepayers to start fighting back and voicing our objections to what is not being done in our name. So let us start this process tomorrow by putting in place a plan to cost the replacement of Stevens Street Retirement Village in its present location and in a timely manner. We are making provision for sports for children in this town right now as per last week's agenda. So now let's put something in place for the elderly to benefit from funds that are invested in their name before it's actually too late. Thank you.
Who's next? I saw a hand there.
Thank you, guys. Look, I'll be short and quick. I've just got a few notes.
What's your name?
My name's Darryl Brown and I live at, I've been here since I was 15. So I'm a local and I don't think I can see one local in front of me. This town, I've said it for years and years and years, this town, to survive, has a trouble because once people get an age, they leave, they go to Perth. This town, now the mining companies, everybody, the Shire, everybody, needs grandparents to look after the kids, to be kids coaches, to do this at the sporting ovals. What are you doing? You're getting rid of the old people. How cruel are you? You did it this time last year to come to Christmas. We had one man tonight, had to, how cruel are you? Just, how do you sleep?
You can stop. Hang on. You can stop calling people cruel and impugning motive.
Oh, it's not cruel.
You just need to be more calm. Just
okay.
Say what you want to say, but you don't need to insult people.
That's not being. I wasn't insulting. I was just telling the truth.
Yeah.
So. Where are you going to move these people? Is one question. You can't move them to South Hedland because it's up to 12 degrees cooler in Port. There where they are there now, it very rarely, probably about 4 times a year, does it get over 40 degrees. I know because I used to live a little bit further down. Where are you going to shift them to? They can't afford to run air conditioning. Here, they sleep every night down there in the middle of the wet without air conditioning because they can open their windows, open their doors. There's no crime rate in this part of Port Hedland. You're talking about where all the drugs are in South Hedland? You can't do that. Have some compassion This town needs, and BHP, everybody needs that retirement village. But not as much as the poor buggers that live in there.
Yeah.
Yeah, g'day, Mike Green, born and bred Port Hedland, 5 Harbour Way for the record, in Wedgefield. Fred, I understand that you're just here as a commissioner. The emotions that are here in this room at present, right, are bubbling at the surface. For you to try and expect people to stand here professionally, and David, and not have that emotion is beyond belief. I'm going to ask some simple questions because at the bottom of all of this, and I'm sure there's a lot of emotions behind us, the basis of the emergency meeting required for tonight is the insurance documents that's been labelled before you. Correct me if I'm not wrong.
It's partly the issue, yeah, partly.
Okay, so my first question to either David and or yourself, Fred, that's the correct way to address you, Honourable Fred.
That's fine.
Has the draft evacuation plan for the Port Hedland Retirement Village actually been accepted, initiated and gone past draft?
Through the chair, there is a draft plan. It was, sorry,
can you just start again so that everyone can hear?
through the chair, there is a draft plan, and it was initiated last cyclone season in response to a TC Veronica, but not fully enacted as the conditions changed.
So again, correct me if I'm wrong, was that not an outcome of our December meeting that we had an evacuation plan in place to care for our elderly residents and at the same time completely obliterate any insurance concerns over the structural concerns in a cyclonic event? If nobody's present, who can be hurt?
My understanding is the structural problems with the buildings is more than just a cyclone. There are a number of issues that might render it unsafe.
Sorry, Fred, I took the pleasure of going down and having a look through our retirement village today. A structural footpath isn't going to fly away. That's referred to in the agenda, that the footpath is structurally unsound. The next question is, have we got any cyclones on the horizon? No. Okay, so again, as per what's been reiterated again, for this to be an urgent meeting that's been put on to ramshackle us...
Hang on. Look, you, I and the rest of the world know that the seasons are changing and this is... Well, this September is warmer than normal. Well, I've lived in the Pilbara for 27 years, so, I know a bit about it. But, Karratha happens to be in the Pilbara, But it's, we don't know how early cyclones are going to be coming, and nor do you.
So, I'll move into a statement, Fred, because I believe that we've been negligent as a committee and a community and letting this go so long. The JV breach was 20 months ago from Department of Housing, right? Prior to that, how many months did it take to get to that point? 20 months, we have done nothing. 20 months, somebody has been negligent in their duty and their obligation to look after the care of our residents. I think that needs investigation. Unless there's strings getting pulled that haven't been tabled, we should find out why it has taken so long for something so simple to be addressed.
Yeah, next.
Thank you.
My name is Mary Atwood. I'm a traditional owner and of the Kurriata people. And I just want to ask 3 questions initially. Mr. Ribling, you're the Commissioner. Can you tell me if there was a report prior to the suspension of the council? And the other thing attached to that is, who appointed you as the Commissioner?
They're the 2 questions.
No, that's probably 2 together, but they all relate to the same issue.
Yeah, there was, as I understand it, 2 reports that went to the Minister, one from the department and one from an independent person, and the Minister for Local Government appointed me.
Okay, I'll pick that up in my statement. As stated in the agenda on the 10th of December 2000, did the council request quotes for the remediation work to be done on the village to the acceptable standard as was quoted on the agenda?
My understanding was there was an estimate of $4 million for that work. Yeah.
And it hasn't been commenced. I suppose there's another question. Nothing has been done, despite the fact that that was done in December, that decision was made.
So it was council's decision not to repair the facility, but to go to a new build. So officers started that work looking at alternatives on the site for either an in situ build or having relocatables.
Well, that's not what I saw in the actual request for the meeting. And on the quote, there was I will present it to it, but that doesn't demonstrate what actually happened. Because the council had supported the community to retain the village and to repair it.
No, that's incorrect. The council's decision was to retain the village, the retirement facility on the existing site, but to demolish the existing buildings and build new ones.
Okay. The other question is, under section 5.2 of the agreement between the Port Hedland Town Council, who is identified as the lessor, and the village corporation, the lessee, gave powers to the town to review and repair the village on an ongoing basis. The report did not provide any information about the inspections or repairs that were made since the completion of this agreement in 2000. Could you provide evidence that the inspections were done and the amount of repairs that were and maintenance that was completed since the completion of the agreement in 2000?
I'd have to take that on notice.
You're going to take it on notice. Under the agreement, the lessee had the option and to permit the lessor architects, that means the council. This is an agreement that was done between the corporation that was managing and the Shire. They were to have the opportunity and to get their agents and contractors to enter the premises in order to review and examine the state of repair and the condition, and to leave on the premises notices about the lack of repair and order and conditions. So in the agreement, I believe the council is at fault because it hasn't complied with the requirements of the agreement. And you can't now determine that this facility has to be demolished just because you didn't do your job. But my statement, as you're aware, I've been here last week. I've been here all my life. I was here when BHP first started. I'm aware that in the first year of their construction, BHP block voted the council. They appointed all the council members were BHP workers. Now that's a total conflict because they went and did everything they required to get the company up and going. This conflict of interest continues today. And because our council now, in the more recent one, we had community people who were interested in ensuring that our rights were considered. But no, you're pulling strings again. And we're not going to accept it because what's happening is not legal. It's not legal because the council is the main stakeholder in the council are the ratepayers. Up until recently, the mining companies didn't pay rates, yet everything they want, they're given, without any consideration for us, the people that live and work here. And I think the time has come for the council to deal with the fact that this is a community town. It was never owned by the mining companies like BHP in Newman. And when they transferred the lease of the town only paid $1. So we, the people that have been living here all our lives, know what's happening, and we're going to fight you. You're not going to get away with it.
Do you have any other people want to make a statement? Yes.
My name is Daphne Morris and I've lived in South Hedland for about 34 years. I just want to read a message from Pam Gangel Hardinge, a previous long-time resident, councillor, advocate for our aged people and also a freeman of the town. She asked me to read this out for her. Before the people of Port Hedland raised enough money for new units in a 2-for-$1 grant by the federal government, the elderly of Port Hedland lived in shacks. They were down where the BMX track is, or was, off Anderson Street. They had 2-room corrugated iron, no floor coverings, cement troughs for washing, wood cooking stoves, no linings. It was very rough. Sir Optimus made it their fundraiser, along with other people in groups. We held arty-farty garden parties, hermit crab races. We walked the pubs on Friday night in Ned Kelly costumes with buckets, special dinners and raffle after raffle. This was not done so someone could come along at a later date and throw the elderly out for a better offer. Up to 10 years ago, they had cost the Shire Council nothing in upkeep or work. Putting the residents out and handing the site to another operation is neither correct nor fair. Don't let it happen, people of Port Hedland. And then she says, come to the meeting and be counted. What we have. Could someone print this off? I'm too old to get there myself. Love to the town, from Pam.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Is there anyone else? Yeah.
Dave McGowan, Sutherland Street, Port Hedland. The The community of Port Hedland previously voted by their 9 democratically elected representatives to keep the current location for our elders in the town. It was a considered vote and came with the public support to move forward, and the officers then allocated $4 million to the budget that was also approved by council in a democratic vote of our elected members. What right do you, Honourable Commissioner, think you have in proposing and being the only person to vote on the rescinding of these motions and change the face of the public will and destroy yet another part of Port Hedland and the way we look after our people that can't speak for themselves? There's a question there. What right have you got to do this?
Well, I've been appointed the Commissioner, and my appointment is to make decisions. And this is one of those things that will be made, a decision will be made one way or another.
And it's already been made, obviously.
Well, not necessarily.
The next question. The proposal for the McGregor Street precinct has item 28, a proposed seniors high density facility in a floodplain. On what logic are you working with to remove the existing tenants years before you have built a replacement facility?
It may be that the current site is where they are in fact built, but that is another option, the McGregor Street, which will be looked at.
You've just thrown a spanner in the works. The proposal here is not to suggest that it's going to stay where they are.
The proposal is that these people really need to be moved because of safety, and the. Do you want the? The answer is that proposal really is for these people to be relocated into safe accommodation, when an alternate accommodation will be sought for them for the period of time it takes to build senior accommodation.
So, I just want to get this clear. The proposal said that was going to be turned into a park. That's not buildings that they can live in.
That was just a suggestion, really. Yeah.
Well, look, this council is so slippery with what they say and what they do that we, with all due respect, we don't believe you.
Well, that's sad.
Okay. So my last question or half statement. If there is any honesty left in the town of Port Hedland and how us ratepayers and thus your paymasters are treated with disdain, lies and sneaky con jobs, when will you be open with the general community?
Once again, you don't need to resort to
I need to get my point across.
And, surely you're smart enough to not have to resort to that.
You can insult, but we can't.
So I'm not trying to insult anybody, but it's the facts. When will you be open with the general community and not hide behind other factors that if you had the will and fortitude to be part of the community, you could let us all work in the same direction?
Is there anyone else wish to make a statement?
Hi, my name's Carol McCorry. I live in the resident. I'm one of the residents that you guys are all standing up for. You go, guys. Port Hedland rock. And just to make it clear today, I meant the council, not you, mate. So, cheers.
Thanks. Is there any other comments? Yeah, down the back.
George Cash, 26 Dempsey Street, Port Hedland, WA 6721. I've been a resident here for 46 years. On the 26th of June, Mr Commissioner, this year, Council budgeted $4 million to start the upgrade of the Stephen Street Retirement Village. I know it's been mentioned, and I'm mentioning again, with further monies to be put in if and when required. Has the Commissioner taken the proposal in his submission before making a decision on this matter?
Yes, I've read the whole file.
Including more monies to be spent
Yep.
on the retirement bills. Okay, thank you. Question 2. Do you, Mr Commissioner, and David Pence realise that if you do close a retirement village, you may have blood on your hands by the stress, grief and anxiety you put on all the tenants and the peoples of the town who care for these and future retirement residents of our town. Do you realise that, Mr. Commissioner?
I'm very sad that is actually happening. It's distressing to me that senior people are put in a situation. This situation should have been resolved, in my view, nearly a year ago. And it wasn't.
Mr. Commissioner, I'm surprised you said that, because we have discussed it a long time, and it was, like I said, on the 26th of June, we came up with a proposal that all these people have got no problems with. Firstly, putting $4 million in, whether like David said, new buildings or upgrade, that's $4 million, with, I'll tell you now, probably guarantee of another $6 million to make sure that the standard of the building that these people were going to live in was the best possible living standard that we can supply them. The insurance and all that would have been covered, because we were planning on lifting the units to a above flood level type of situation. Okay, so I don't know. I'm really frustrated that this has come up as the people behind me are as well, because it shouldn't. We agreed on spend millions and millions and millions of dollars to make sure these people were well looked after and they were happy and they could go fishing when they wanted. Shops are 5 minutes away instead of going in other places. But anyway, my third question. As a manager commissioner and as CEO David Pence, who is leaving this town shortly, really have a heart and dignity to care about the feelings of our retirement village personnel, their families and the citizens of our town?
Yes.
Well, I hope your decision, I know you haven't made your decision yet, hold on. I hope you make the right decision today, and it's for Christ's sake, for the future and the belief that our retirement people who have lived there for a number of years get well looked after and not be treated like numbers or just puppy dogs you can put all over the place. They want to be together, they talk together, they live together, and please, Mr. Commissioner, make sure you make the right decision. Thank you.
Is there anyone else? Yep.
Good evening, Commissioner. I just have two questions to ask. I did have a third, but it was already asked. And the May OCM that we passed this motion, it states, did the town engage with the Department of Communities as per May's motion that was passed on the land tenure lease? Could I...
Sorry, can you just ask that question again?
Yes, under the May OCM, it stated that the town would engage with the Department of Communities as per the land tenure. Did this happen?
We have been in contact with them, yes.
Contact?
I've met with them.
Verbally?
Verbally.
Nothing in writing?
We've had an exchange of... I'm trying to think of what the last correspondence was. I will check on that.
Could I have all correspondence of this, please?
Sure.
And that it did occur. Second question. After going through this OCM, I picked up one thing, and I did come to my briefings and I did learn a bit. This year, the council were briefed on a public open space audit. Could you please explain why you would support the development of Stephen Street site into a community park when our briefing on the audit stated we had too many parks and that we need to reduce the number of parks in this town?
The audit that I think went to council last month, I don't think it said we had too many parks. I think
This was a briefing that we had back in, I think it was April.
Oh, well.
And the consultants came up and went through it all with us.
Well, the report that was tabled and agreed to last month said there's an actual shortage of parks.
It's obviously changed since we left then.
Well, possibly. I don't know what we were told back in April.
Then why did you shut down
Thank
that
you.
little park down
Watch.
on the main
Lynn.
line at Dust End? Why did you shut down that little park?
Lynn, thank you very much, Commissioner.
Is there any others? Yeah.
Toyota Pitt, suspended councillor, and I reside at 3 Jurapuka Court in South Hedland. I was at the previous council meeting when I found out that the old cemetery decision was going to be rescinded, and I said then that I felt what was happening here was an absolute disrespect to the democracy and the right that the people of Port Hedland have to vote. Australia, not just local government, is founded upon this democracy and the right for people to elect people to represent their best interests. Unfortunately, we've come under suspension and 3 councillors wrote letters in support of that suspension. So our democracy, our right to be represented by local people at a council table has now been taken away from us. During the time of suspension, I did have some correspondence in between, personal correspondence with the Minister's office, and he responded me a letter that his closing paragraph said, "The residents and ratepayers of their town are entitled to expect their elected representatives to accept and meet the responsibilities prescribed by the Local Government Act 1995, behaving and making decisions that are in the carefully considered best interest of the community." Yours sincerely, the Honourable David Templeman, who is the Local Government Minister. Tonight the community have come and they have spoken to you. You are now their elected representative under the Act. You have been put in here as the Commissioner, and I ask that you uphold this part of the Local Government Act and make a decision that is considered the best interest of the community, and that is to not rescind the vote, to keep the site of the Stephen Street Village, to spend the $4 million to either rebuild or refurbish the standing council, and also, in a sense, to have some empathy, because in no due respect to you, Commissioner, but you are of age of these people, and I ask that you could put yourself in their position tonight in some sense and have some compassion and empathy. Would you like for one man to decide your fate? And if you did, what would you like for him to choose? Thank you.
Do we have any other people that want to make a contribution?
Camilo Blanco, Holloway, Wedgfield. I would have expected that most people that commented tonight would have actually read all of the information that's provided in the agenda and the reasons behind a decision like this. Currently in the Bahamas, it's in the news if anybody has read it. The hurricane, made landfall and
people
44.
Excuse me, could you just allow people to speak with? I mean, there was no noise when you were speaking.
Exactly. Thank you, Commissioner. So 44 people died, and they are suggesting that there is going to be a huge spike with thousands missing. 90% of the homes have been, or buildings and infrastructure in the harbour area have been damaged. That report was put out by the World Food Programme. Thousands of people are living in government buildings and have little access to water and power. So the issue, I suppose, is that's what we can expect in Port Hedland if we are not focused on ensuring the safety of people in the infrastructure that we have built here. And, of course, the safety of our people is the number one priority. So when the Category 4 cyclone Veronica rolled down the coast earlier this year, emergency services and police were put at risk because of the emergency evacuation plan was ignored by a couple of residents. Now, Cook Point Drive was underwater, and the causeway on the 6 Mile turnoff had the water up onto the middle of the road. We did expect a 12-metre surge, but luckily we dodged a bullet there, and we only got an 8-metre tide. And the actual effects of only a severe storm. But that didn't stop the comments from some uninformed members of the public saying that I was lying about the actual events throughout Cyclone Veronica. What they're actually saying there is that the police and our emergency services are lying, because that is where the factual information comes from. And if you're not convinced about that, then the video evidence that I've shown shows the ocean at the doorstep of the retirement village. So now we are coming into our next cyclone season, and we still have the catastrophic risk created by that stupid decision of council. Media reports over this whole period of this conversation have been well below any sort of professional standard, playing to people's emotions, conveniently and completely disregarding the facts. The Retirement Village Committee completely failed in their responsibility to ensure the building remained in a good state of repair. That was the committee. Failing to ensure residents were independent and able to care for themselves. Failing to spend $170,000 in 3 different accounts on the complex. Telling residents that there was no money to fix the issues. Not knowing how much money they had in the bank. Refusing to hand over financial records when I asked for them. A council member living there for free. Some paying themselves for time they spent there and then claiming to be volunteers or good Samaritans. Some of the public and council members dismissing engineering, building, plumbing and electrical reports about structural and safety non-compliances. Buildings not being able to survive a cyclonic event. And currently, we have a no insurance scenario triggering a catastrophic risk to individual council and staff members, the public, the town's management, the town's finance, and business people supporting this move themselves would not consider such a stunt to their own business responsibilities, but seem quite happy for the town, staff and council members to create a serious life-threatening risk and turn a blind eye to the law and obvious dire consequences.
Just if you could just listen in silence, please. There's no need for that sort of comment.
Thank you, Commissioner. The same people would have been screaming blue murder and asking for blood if somebody died in that complex because of the negligence created by this decision. That is just a complete absence of common sense on their part. So, Commissioner, in conclusion, it's critically important to revoke the decision and sort out this mess once and for all. And for that, the majority of Hedland people would be grateful. Thank you.
Is there any other people want to make... Yep.
Ronald Atwood, 111 Anson Street, Port Hedland. I was born in this town. There's no one in this room here that's been here longer than I have. And here we have a person coming up here telling us about this town here. You must have seen things on the cyclone which had the water up to the bar in the Pier Hotel. It wasn't up to the bar in the Pier Hotel the other day. And here he's talking about the Bahamas and that. Those people get off their feet again and rebuild. Why do you have to ship these people? Milo and his cronies want to do what they want to do. People will live when they want to live. If the Bahama people want to live where they want to live, they will rebuild again. So why don't you go and build something that will sustain and keep them living there for the rest of their life?
Is there any other members?
Are we allowed to have a second by the chair?
No. Do you want to make a comment?
Commissioner, council members, my name is Des Miney. I live in 9 Kingsmore Street. I've been here 50 years. On the news this morning, the Commonwealth Government commissioned Price Waterhouse to look into heat stress. And the result was Price Waterhouse said that all the natural disasters didn't account for a portion of the people that died from heat stress. So cyclones, fires, all these natural disasters don't come anywhere near the amount of people that die from heat stress. So if we are making a decision here, we must make a decision that allows the people to stay near the sea where they can live. Taking people to South Hedden is just a death sentence to pensioners. For 2 reasons. One, they can't afford to run an air conditioner, and secondly, there's no safety for them because they can't leave their houses open. Thank you.
Is there any other people want to make a statement? Yep.
Hi, Mandy Clark of Moseley Street, Port Hedland. Just curious, not sure if it's possible, but what if the residents chose to sign an affidavit saying that no insurance companies are liable if anything happened to them, which won't anyway?
That's not a possibility.
No?
No. You don't have ownership of it. It's the responsibility of the owners.
Aren't they responsible for themselves?
It's the actual buildings that we're talking about, and that's owned and needs to be insured through council.
Okay, so what's the deal of the people that live there?
Well,
Are you just cared about the buildings?
No, that's not at all.
Yeah, I know.
The whole purpose is to make sure that these people are safe.
Yeah, but you're not taking into account what they actually want, or the town, or the people of Port Hedland. We have had cyclones here forever and a day. Cyclone Joan pretty much ripped through the whole town. We rebuilt. So why wouldn't we rebuild if it happened again? And the water wasn't lapping at the actual door, it was in their yard.
Yeah, is that a statement?
It's a statement and a fact, and I have photos.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thanks. Is there any other members of the public want to make a statement? If you've had a statement.
Can I just mention?
No, take a seat.
Been through 2 Category 4 cyclones.
Okay. Just take a seat.
Category 4.
Take a seat. Does anyone else wish to contribute? No. Okay. Thank you. Thanks, members of the public. I do thank you for your contribution. Clearly, there's a lot of passion about this particular issue. There's a lot of kind of allegations about my motives who might have directed me to do what. That is just wrong. It's just wrong. I will make a decision based on the facts in relation to this particular matter and what is in the best interests of the people of Port Hedland through its council. So, and it's interesting, it is my hope that if at the end of the day we look for a relocation, that most of the relocation would occur into Port Hedland, not South Hedland. That's just by the by. Do we have any petitions? No petitions? Deputations, presentations? Any submissions? Not being any. No questions from members?
Are we allowed to ask for an extension on that?
No. No, it has to be now. Announcement of presiding officer without discussion, there is nothing. I declare that I have taken due consideration for all the materials contained in the papers before council. Unfortunately, I've read everything that has been put before us, and including the submissions from last time. It is a very difficult decision when emotions are at play, and I don't doubt the passion that you people are showing tonight, but that's not the decision I have to make. The decision I have to make is based on facts, and this is my finding. I've looked at the reports in relation to the property in question. I've looked at the determination made by LGIC, the town's insurer, on the property. I've also looked at the legal opinion from McLeod's, our lawyers. I've listened to the people's views on this matter, as set out in the various statements that you've made, and questions, plus a lot of the material which gives opinions as well in the documents I've read. My role in this matter is to make a decision that is in the best interest of council and the people of Port Hedland in general. To do the above, I must decide on 3 significant issues, and it won't be any news to you, to the people here. The first is the building reports. There was 2. I have read the report on the condition of these units and found that the report is correct, and that to allow people to live in the units is not acceptable. 2, I've considered the legal opinion from our lawyers, McLeod's, the state's top local government lawyer firm, that states clearly that given my knowledge of the condition of these units, if I actually encouraged occupancy of the units, the council would be liable, and possibly I would personally be liable for damages. The determination of the insurance company to not cover the property renders council liable for damages. I've listened to the arguments people have made that seniors remain in what is at best substandard accommodation, at worst dangerous. I thought that protests would be here protesting that we allow seniors to live in substandard accommodation. That's what happens just about everywhere else in the world. I acknowledge the location is sensational of this unit, and hopefully, as I said earlier, maybe these units can be rebuilt on that location and these people can move back in once it's built. In relation to the previous decision of council, I considered that council's duty to make informed decisions in the best interest of council and the people of Port Hedland was not correctly discharged, and left councillors and council both in civil and possibly criminally liable for those actions. I do not wish to go into the motives for that position, only to say the decision that was made was in fact wrong. I will instruct council officers to work with Homes West, the private sector and other providers to provide the best housing solution possible for these residents. The only option that is no longer an option is to stay in these units. I will be meeting with the residents tomorrow to discuss the accommodation selection and the possibilities for these people. If there's, I believe a number are going to come up here. Yeah. I now go to the formal vote on these matters. I also wish to note that to rebuild these units would take about between 12 to 18 months, as I understand it, and it is unacceptable to have people on site in relation to those builds. So the site at that address and the McGregor Street are two options that we will pursue with the government to try and get a replacement facility for the seniors of Port Hedland. As I say, I'll now go to the formal voting on these matters. I raise my hand and support the revocation of the previous order, and I so order. I support the recommendation 1 on page 8 of the report. I support recommendation 2 on page 8 and 9 of the report. I support recommendation 3 on page 9 and 10 of the report. In closing, I now hope that the relocation to safe accommodation is the main focus of the people of Port Hedland, and I thank you for your involvement. Thank you. Sorry, there's a couple of more things. There's no new and urgent business. The next date for the next ordinary meeting date of council will be the 25th of September, commencing at 5:30. I now close the meeting at 6:45.